Plus.
I thought I turned it down.
Well, good to know, thank you. So we have the agenda before us. This is the same agenda you had previous in your email inbox and in the packets. Any changes, additions to this amendment or to this? Motion to accept the agenda. Moved by Tom, second by Steve. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Agenda is adopted. The minutes for July 28th regular meeting. Those are the minutes that were emailed to you and in your packet. Do I approve Carol both sets? Or do I approve them as one?
You mean closed session?
Yeah,
And we had that,
I think I should approve them separately.
yes, I would say.
Okay, let's do the regular meeting, planning commission meeting, July 20th, 2022. Indicated at the top of the minutes at 7 p.m. Any changes, additions? We all kind of saw these ahead of time. Issues, they're very long. It's a very long meeting. All right, hearing none, the motion to adopt the minutes for the regular meeting. So moved. Moved by Tom. Seconded by. There you go, Sandy. Seconded by Sandy. All in favor say aye. All opposed nay. And the minutes are adopted. Now, we did have a closed session during that meeting. Were those distributed? I think they were, right, Carol, in the email or not?
I don't get them. I don't know.
Oh, just I,
Mailing them to you.
but I didn't distribute them, right? All right, well, we'll have to approve those at the next meeting. I don't think I distributed, did you guys do them? No? All right, threw me for a little bit of closed session release. All right, I will get those to you.
Linda has them somewhere. She has them already. They're sealed.
Oh, you're sealed, okay.
Are they sealed? Okay. I mean, you can.
I can still send a draft to these
Yeah,
guys. so
right.
they can see it.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't want you voting on something.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do it next meeting, which actually we're gonna propose a little meeting here in a week or two, so. We'll do that next. Public comment. Anyone here in the public wishing to speak on anything? Let's see, the only public hearing we have is the request for rezoning for inlandish development. We'll do the public comment for that when we do that agenda item. Anything else on your mind, you're free to bring up at this time. Patrick, you're on the agenda. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't have to go first.
Yeah, I'll go.
I don't know.
Okay, you're done though. Just,
Pat Ziski, Bush Road.
yep.
Going back to the minute, actually, I wish something could be added to it, and I'm not sure if it's too late. And I'm going to do it. When Biosat came in, one of the first things the person said is that although he does a lot of military applications, that this was strictly for residential. But I think that ought to be on the minute, that his intention was to do this strictly for residential.
Okay,
So I don't know for sure if it's going to matter. No.
we'll think about it.
The second thing is the open space ordinance, for which is not a public hearing today, so I'd like to speak for a minute. I've been, of course, as everybody knows, really incredibly disappointed at the length of time this has gone on for. Really, 3.5 years since I first raised the issue. And it is the primary reason why I submitted a rezoning application, and the reason why I submitted one, an unconditional one, a year ago, nearly a year ago. So that kind of increases my frustration to realize what it's taken me to. 3 months since this issue has come up, even for discussion in the planning commission. No new draft. No indication that the letter that I sent to the planning commission has been forwarded to either Robert Shaw or Rebecca Harvey. I'd like to go through that letter to kind of refresh where I thought I was for open space ordinance, but it's too long. people have to read it. It was supposed to be forwarded to them.
It was.
I didn't- okay.
I don't know why you suggested it wasn't. I
No,
said the
I-
last meeting it would be, and it was.
Now, I just don't know because there has been
Well,
no,
it was.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very
there you
much.
go.
You're a man of your word.
I am a man of my word. It was.
But the problem isn't necessarily whether it's forwarded, it's that there's been no further feedback on the open space ordinance of any kind. Not based on my letter, not based on anything, and that's just, with terrible regret, that's what brings me here today for the rezoning. And I really regret that because I know the rezoning puts even more burden of work on everybody. I don't want to do that. I really want this thing to get moving along, and I wonder if there's any way that it can be restarted in earnest. I believe, David, that you would like to. Of course, my other comments are going to be about the rezoning when we get to that.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for that. And one in the back and then we'll put them back in front. Yep. Could you state your name too for the.
Renee Townsend. Next. I'm glad that we're here preparing to do a review and revision of the master plan. Residents have been calling for this for close to 2 years. We hope we will do it the proper way with plenty of feedback from the residents and transparency and ethical behavior from all. As we begin the process, I would encourage perhaps looking back at the 2008 master plan. It was highly detailed and very explicit with some of its points. 2017 master plan is vague and inconsistent in comparison. 2008 master plan stated 7 times that the only reason sewer and water goes down Pierce Road was to get to the lakes and wasn't to solve public health and pollution. And that Pierce Road should not be developed just because sewer and water lines are there. It was not the intent, nor is there the capacity. What changed so much other than a new board and planning commission and zoning supervisor that we just left all of that out? Mr. Cossack mentioned that fact at one of the recent meetings, as well as making the point that the recent report stating there is adequate capacity is flawed because the timing did not allow for verification of pressures or fire flows, which was the main problem with Westchester Farms. This consent judgment development only has about 60 of the 400 homes we must service built so far. Messing that up with inappropriate development on Pierce Road could set us up for another lawsuit. Both the 2008 and 2017 master plan call for mixed use, specifically in certain areas, namely south of 9452 interchange and on the St. Louis campus. Yet the map for future land use in the 2017 master plan shows this land at Pearson Darby as mixed. It's a big part of why we keep getting these inappropriate requests. Another issue came up in the August 94 minutes, and it was very concerning. It was reported that a staff member was overheard stating they had a conversation with a commercial real estate agent who complained about Sylvan's stance on development. The staff member stated that he or she was going to reach out to that agent so as not to lose out on development. That seems absolutely inappropriate for any staff member or board member to do. The staff member also used a derogatory term, "you," in reference to residents who spoke out against these inappropriate developments. This is completely unprofessional. Is somebody looking into this? If not, they should be. And findings should be reported at the next meeting. If this was an elected official, the name should be made public so that residents know going forward. And if this is an appointed or employed person, I would question the appointment or employment. Is this person involved in the review of the master plan? That would seem like an ethically bad idea. We need to be able to work together to create a master plan that will truly serve Sylvan Township and its residents. We are the gateway to the Waterloo recreation area, and the residents are here for the rural character our master plan promises to preserve. We respectfully ask that you honor that so that our township can be as it was intended.
Thank you. Front, you were doing.
Dave Reinhardt on Conway Road.
Dave.
I just wanted to say, I echoing a lot of what Patrick just said. I wasn't sure the appropriate place, but I'm really disappointed that this zoning Conway is coming up tonight. Open space, for sure, my preference being neighbors to this. And I don't know why it's taken 4 years. I think anybody except mild mannered Patrick would probably have a lawyer increasing the amount that this township has to have on lawyers, which is in other minutes, significant compared to other townships. I don't know if it's like death by 1,000 cuts, if it's something deliberate. I don't know if it's fear of the unknown, or, when we build something like I have. It's the excruciatingly slow movement of local government, which I admit I don't have a real tolerance for. But he's been at this 4 years, and neighbors have been contacted. Elaborate drawings, experts, and still it's nowhere. So I would much rather see that moving forward than this rezoning. But if the rezoning is the only way that this can happen, I guess I can speak to that.
Yep, we'll do that now, okay. One more on the back, yep.
Good evening, Mike Bangor on Spruce Run Drive. I'd like to just a couple thoughts on the master plan.
Yep.
I know in the past, Chairman Seitz, you indicated it's hard to get people to provide feedback last time. And I think you got our attention this time. I think it had just gone on for so long that that's the way things were, that people weren't really thinking of, boy, things would be changing. And I know that the current national plan calls for this area to be mixed use. I think there are some issues with that. And I know there's been some reluctance on several members' part to the full scale revamp. I don't think that's what has been expected. I think there's a couple of areas that we can really come together and focus on. I heard something about Lake District, I don't think the ordinance issue. But certainly this area along Pierce Road, I think this is going to be reevaluated. I'd like to, challenge all of us to really kind of have some sort of vision of what we want this area to be. I think right now it's very negative, so anything goes, and so we've kind of seen in the past, but there are some things that might be inappropriate, some things that the residents are concerned about. And I'd like to say thank you to this planning commission for listening. And I think they have made some really good decisions moving forward. So I'd like to kind of offer encouragement, participation, and good dialogue and good thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Lois Whitman from Pierce Road. I'm encouraged that the master plan is up for review. I would like to see a lot of different things. I don't know a lot about all areas of the township, but I think it's reasonable to look at the Pierce Road area and review the appropriateness of the mixed use designation. I would also like to see the open space ordinance proceed. And it would be nice if consideration could be given to some other things like solar arrays and different things like that we don't have policies or guidance for. And I'm encouraged that this is perhaps going to go forward with this may be thoughtful consideration on these topics. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more on this issue, or on any issue actually, other than the public hearing? All right, we'll move on to the hearings. So public comment is closed. Our first item of business, unfinished business. So the open space preservation ordinance. I think I can actually hit all the things I need to comment on with these two items. So the first one, Patrick, 3.5 years since you started, yes. We approved a version shortly thereafter, sent it to the township board. They wrestled with it for a while. I think they sent it back to us. I think we did something else to it. We sent it back to them. Then they sent it back to us. And then we hired a consultant who came up with a draft that I think will solve the issue we were struggling with, which was the density. There was no agreement on density bonus. So it isn't fair to say 3.5 years ago, we started to do this one ordinance. We've done several iterations and haven't been able to come to agreement. You know, I think if there were 5 me's on here, we probably would have got it done. If there were 5 Steves on here, we could have got it done, but diversity of opinion. And then at the board level, you know, there was a diversity of opinion. And in fact, Sandy, I don't think you were on the board when we started that process. So it does change. It is hard. You know, I've worked in policy for 25 years and it's never fast and it's never easy. And it always looks easier on the outside. I get that. We're trying and I've been pushing this myself. So open space preservation, we got all the public comment, we got Patrick's letter, we got the consultant's version, which we've gone back and forth on a few things to get right, because I don't want to send something more to the board and then have them send it back. I don't want this back again. So now Attorney Thal has it. I can't explain his workload, but he works for many townships and he is swamped. So he did not give me the draft with his comments back. So because of that, and because I agree this process has got to be finished, and I want it finished by the end of October. So that means I would like to have a special meeting, work session October 6th to go over Mr. Thal's comments. And then at our regular meeting, the end of October, we have our public hearing and we send it on to the township board. Any of my members have any issue with that? I know you can't be here on the 6th. Or the 27th. Oh, you're here. I can be here. Leah said she could be here on the 6th. Okay. All right, so I want to make sure we have quorum because I really want the 6th to happen so that we can get the public hearing set up. And if we need to notice that hearing before the 6th or whatever, I really like the public hearing in October. Any blockades to that?
No, but, no. So if you have a meeting on the 6th, that will still give enough time to hurry up and draft a notice to get it in for the following week.
Okay.
And it'll make the statutory deadline for the October 27th public hearing.
Okay, and the reason we need the 6th, just as a reminder, is that the attorney is making some language changes that we need to make this fit with our ordinances. And so we need to see that and talk about it, because I don't want to do that at the hearing. Because all that happens at the hearing is, oh, you know, it's time to think about this. And so, as you heard tonight, there's a need to move this forward, which actually then we'll get to some things we'll talk about under your request, Patrick. So, any other members have any other thoughts on the open space? I mean, I know it's a tough subject we've been working on for years, and I'm sorry that you're coming in the middle of it for me. But I thought when the consultant came on board, we were able to make some progress because we were able to get creative in terms of solving one issue, which was, you know, for some members, they don't want the density bonus, which I understood. And then for other members, there were issues elsewhere, and she was able to think there are other ways to incentivize open space. And one of the ways, because this township doesn't allow private roads, was to think about that as an incentive. Again, the project itself, you know, what I love about the process is the design process. You start with the number of homes you would have had regardless, right? So it's ag, you got 1 for 2 acres, 20 acres, 10 homes. You start with that. That's all you get. There's no, but then you can do what I like to do, which is say, could we cluster these in a way to preserve as much open space as possible, or at least buffer it from the road, or do those things so we preserve a rural character. And then we get to figure out, you know, is there enough room for setbacks and sewer and water and all those things on top of it. But it's a design process, which I like. So I'm hopeful we can get something done in October. We get a sense of the township board, which means it'll be in your hands for December meeting. Because that's November.
It won't get to the board because
Oh,
by the
thanks,
time
Bruce.
the minutes get approved and
Yeah.
that actually
So they can work on it in December if they so
Yeah, it
choose.
does get in December.
Yeah, there's a little election going on or something. So then, that would get us done with this, so. Well, let's do that, let's set a special meeting, or it wouldn't be a special meeting, it's a work session meeting October 6th.
Yeah.
At 7 p.m.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. That'll be the only thing we focus on. Attorney Thal, master plan, let's see, I want to make a couple more comments. All right, so during public hearing, I heard, I apologize, I don't know what he responded much, but I do have to respond to one thing on the master plan, and it's, you know, I do agree that that process should be open, and I think the word ethical is used, with bugs me, because I've been chair here a while, I don't think we've ever done anything unethical, and it would be over my dead body, let's just say that. So, that kind of stuff bothers me. That's not how you start out a conversation to work together. I think you have to respect everyone at the table and realize there are differences of opinion. There are reasons that the future land use map said that about Pierce Road, and we get to decide now whether we change it, which is great. That's part of the process, so we could do that. But that didn't mean that there was any nefarious thing there. That master plan process was very open. It was, I mean, I didn't even know what a master plan was when I got on here, and then all of a sudden I was chair, and you know, I was like, oh, this process is almost 2 years. We had, I don't know how many meetings we had, you know, all these public hearings. We had to notify the townships. We had 7 meetings. All right, so you kept track. But we try to get people's opinions through letters in their tax bills. We, you know, and I think you're right. The gentleman back who talked about, you know, it just doesn't, you don't really see it until you need it, right? And so this time around, I know we'll have plenty more info, which is great. I don't foresee us doing a full scale review. I think we decided at the last meeting this is about amending. So I think that part of the process is what Attorney Paul is going to indicate to us. And we'll have that hopefully to us, even maybe before the 6th, so we can look at it before the 27th or whatever it is. But I assume amendment process, because we did have an amendment proposed way back when for a change in zoning for the billboards. I remember.
Actually, that was under the original, the
Right.
2008.
But that was an amendment, it was proposed as an amendment, right?
You had to amend the master plan so you could then
The
amend
zoning
the
change.
zoning.
Yeah, we
And
never,
that failed.
yeah, we didn't do it for good reason, but the master plan was, it was an amendment process, and it still required several hearings and
The same
make
process.
sure we do it right. So, you know, I totally agree with everyone else on here. Let's look at Pierce Road, let's figure out, and if we rejected everything that come before us, so obviously we have a better understanding of what we don't want, right, and what we want, so that's helpful. But again, a lot of that was based on the infrastructure and so forth. Other comments on the master plan review? Again, I don't think this is something is held up by any means. All we need to do is from the attorney have the exact number of hearings, steps, what we do, and if we have that in October, then we can start doing that in November, right? All right, on board. All right, and the only other thing I'd talk about, there was some mention about August 9th, and it kept board minutes, and I don't know what happens at the township board. I don't go to those meetings, and I'm not on social media, so I'm at a real loss here. But my assumption would be, you know, that's something you'd want to comment at the board meeting, because that's their deal. Here we run a tight ship. But anyway, let's move on to new business. Chelsea Square, 81 units, request a 1-year extension of the final site plan approved September 23rd, 2021. As I read through this stuff, I remembered this project oh too well. And there's been a delay. I know the applicant had their view of that delay, but I did talk to Attorney Zoll about that, and he had a little different view. So, but that doesn't matter. The delays based on the permitting process are what we're focused on today. And what we're running up against is the 180 day for them to pull the permit, Carol? Or is it to start the?
Yeah, there's language, yes, there's language in there, and I believe Jack's here.
Okay, yeah, oh, Jack, I'll have to speak.
And there's language in our ordinance that says if you don't start within 6 months, then your site plan fails,
Yeah.
or you don't pull a building permit within that time. And one of the issues is they can't pull a building permit, they can't finish some of these things because,
The Eagle,
yeah, exactly.
okay. And we've run into this, well,
And
not,
Jack's here to address that.
we've run into this before, not with Eagle, but like with St. Louis, we have to extend their site plans.
We have, theirs is different because theirs is actually, they had
Multi-phase.
started, yes, and they had already started their construction, and it was in particular for theirs, the St. Louis Center, it is their it's their recreation building, it's,
The building, they're not, yeah,
and where they're lacking some funding, but they're moving forward and making progress on the other phase. This is just the one phase that they haven't been able to fulfill.
right. Okay. And Jack is here, so I'm gonna let Jack speak to the request, and then we'll get to work.
Good evening, I'm Jack Knowles, I'm with Snowman Investments. The letter pretty much speaks for itself, and Chairperson, you summarized it pretty well. We would be in the ground as we speak if we could get a permit. This is totally out of our control, and totally it's out of the township's control. Everybody's, we're not the only ones affected by this. Everybody's just waiting for Eagle to do something, or really for the Leone Township to comply with whatever Eagle's asking of them. So, there is one, inaccuracy in my letter, and it's on the expiration date in the last, next to last paragraph of the letter, where I state the new approval would expire on January 11th. Actually, it would be from the date of when it did expire, which was in July, so it'd be July 7th of 2023. Which is actually better for you guys, because then I'm hopefully not going to be back in front of you again asking for another extension. So I'm glad to answer any questions if you have any. I think Carol mentioned, and we've been working diligently at this. We've got everything else ready to go. We're really just waiting for that. As soon as we get it, or the permission,
Right.
we'll start moving some dirt.
Because when we approved that final site plan, there were conditions based on engineering review, those have been completed.
Yeah.
All the conditions were met, right, except for the permit.
Yes.
The shipment, yeah.
Okay, and when I talked to Attorney Paul, this was last month about a different issue. He said the Leone Eagle dispute, he was hopeful that something was gonna get resolved, but
Yeah,
I just don't know where it's at.
we're all hopeful.
Yeah, well, and he represents several townships, and he said there are other townships in the same local,
My understanding is there are other communities that contribute sewage to that plant.
to that plant.
And despite Sylvan not being one of the problems, you are not the problem.
Right.
You're still being held hostage, just like every other community that goes there.
I've had many days' experience with Eagle and budget process.
All right. Planning commission members, any questions for Mr. Knowles?
Yeah, I have one. In your letter, you talk about the township was in violation of consent judgment. I was just curious as to
Well,
brush us on that.
Believe me, I'm not an attorney, but I've got a court order that says you're supposed to give me X amount of service. We are not getting that service. I understand, you have a problem with Leone, but that's your problem. My problem is sort of with you, and you in turn with Leone.
Proper chain of command.
I thought I read there was not enough taps too, is what I tried to read.
Well, not for the entire project, but certainly enough that we could have several buildings, a number of units up and underway.
Right, but how many taps are you short?
I think it's 17 sewer taps.
And how do you plan to get those?
What do you mean?
Where's your plan to acquire those?
Well, this township owns those.
Those would be in the development.
That's part of the consent judgment. You're supposed to give us
17.
units right now. We don't have it. That nobody's pushing.
No, I just want to make sure it's clear.
Yeah, we have to, I think the problem is just the Leone.
No,
Stop it, just keeping us.
Everybody has
Very-
Oh, no,
Do I sound that?
no, I wouldn't. Okay. Any other questions? All right, so this motion would be based on the actual language. We've done this before, so you're probably familiar with it, members, but this would be a motion to provide a 1-year extension from the site plan expiration based on good cause, and in this case, the good cause is lack of permitting capacity between Eagle and Leone at the moment. So, the motion to that effect. All right, the chair will make the motion, seconded by Mike. I was trying to let you guys. All right, so I move that we provide a 1-year extension to the Chelsea Square 81 unit final site plan approval, which would take us to July 7th, 2023. And that extension is based on good cause being the current impasse between Leone and Eagle for further sewer expansion. And seconded by Mike. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Roll call, since this is motion, so we will start with Courtney. Yes. Tom, yes. 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 Mike, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Chair votes yes. Unanimous, motion is adopted. Thank you. Thank you. And good luck. Thank you. Now I know what they feel like at the Secretary of State when you have a little problem and they go, good luck. It must feel exactly how I feel right now.
Okay, this sounds good. Okay, good.
Very good. Good luck, Mr. Science. All right, public hearing on the Inlandish Development LLC for conditional rezoning of 20 acres, 5601 Conway Road. Formerly 5710. Anyway, as we learned last time, the tax parcel ID is our major legal restriction. We can start out with the applicant. Patrick. I know you're shy, Patrick, but can you at least talk for a couple minutes?
I get tired of my own issue.
All right.
Yeah, I'm the owner of the company. First of all, about the process. Is it customary for, I think it's customary for the applicant to come back and then answer questions later as they might arise?
Yeah, you'll be able to do that.
Right, because there are a lot of things here. I mean, I read through the whole staff report and everything, and I don't know which direction it's gonna take. But, and, I also want to start off by saying that, I did not intend my comments about the open space or to be partially directed toward any person. If they were, they'd be directed in part toward myself. But I was part of the process too, and everybody disagreed.
We're good at that.
Well, at least for a few minutes. So the rezoning application, and as I said, this is not the direction that we started. We started with hoping that we could keep it in ag, and I still have some hope because the open space ordinance is still in process. Hoping that we keep it in ag, but utilize the open space ordinance in the way that it was intended. We'd be like the poster child for it, you know? Our plan, even before we knew about that, was to preserve more than 50% of the property. And we still want to do that. And we still want to cluster the homes basically the same way that we always intended. No, there's some minor adjustments because now we're learning the rules of the better. But the rules are not finalized yet because you're still working on the ordinance. And that's the reason why I was not able to submit a site plan. We don't know what it's going to look like. And I would still hope to utilize the open space ordinance. even with the rezoning. Although if we had a good open space ordinance, the rezoning wouldn't be necessary, from my perspective. And if you look at the conditions on it, they actually closely mimic the core principles of the open space ordinance. And I wanted to do that to make sure that people knew this was not some kind of open-ended thing that was gonna result in, you know, 200 units clustered on a half an acre or something like that, right? Because you've been through that already. I'm actually voluntarily limiting this to only 2 additional units over and above what we'd already be eligible for that. So it's very modest. That's because we always thought that 2 units would be in line with a typical density bonus. But that density bonus may be compromised away if we stick with the open space. I understand that too. But if it's gonna go for LR, at least go for some of it, very modest. And the other condition on the rezoning application is the permanent preservation of over 50% of the land, which is exactly what the open space ordinance was intended to do. That shows that our intent is always the same. The details of what the residential clusters look like are still to be determined based on how these other ordinances shape up. But all I was able to provide there was kind of a vague diagram of the homes clustered up front and the ag land being in the back. As was noted in the staff report, the soil there is actually good for agriculture. So I'm very happy to preserve it. We've noticed that too. And in fact, what may not be noted, may not be obvious from the soil map, is that we've had farming activity for produce going on in different parts of the land in different years. And it turns out that the part that we have slated for the residential cluster is the poorest part for agriculture. The part down the hill is actually better. So I just wanted to note that a little bit. I think so many different directions this could go in, but I think when I look down the hill from my property and see Westchester Farm, which is only a quarter mile away from the boundary of my property, I really think that this represents, even with the 2 extra units, which is pretty minimal, a really gradual transition from what we have going down the hill. And we're not asking the township to provide any utilities or any services for us, other than, you know, an increase in fire service, which might happen if there's a fire. So of course, that happens with any. I think those considerations about water and sewer capacity are really not an issue. I haven't heard traffic be raised, but 12 more homes on a road that probably up and down the road already has 50. I walk back and forth from my home on Bush Road. And on the average, the Conway leg of my trip, which takes me probably 10 minutes to walk, on the average, I see about 1 car. So I just want to kind of like preemptively for that. I really think that we're doing it with minimal impact. And of course, a lot of these things will come up in the pipeline reviews, like the U-Walk, et cetera, with the already started plans. But I'm very happy to get input on the issues like that. In fact, we've actually offered several outdoor parties at our own level, and included the neighbors in the parties. I'm not saying all the neighbors support it, some do, right? But we've actively sought out input from the, even sat down with candidate site plans in the home. So we're very sensitive to getting feedback. Like I said, I'd welcome any feedback from people. Not that it would change our plans dramatically, but it makes a real difference. I guess that's pretty much all I'd say to lead off. I don't know if any of either Associate Christian here should speak as well. He probably speaks more from a land preservation specialist, which he is. If that's part of, that can be part of our presentation, I would be very happy to repeat that.
Christian, you have a few minutes, yeah? Should see you again.
Good to see you too. My name is Christian, for those of you who haven't met me before, and I've worked with Patrick for a while. and the planning commission, as necessary case. And I don't work in land preservation anymore, full disclosure, but I did for about 5 years, with county programs for land preservation, farmland and open space preservation in Ingham County, Kent County, and a few others. And I think it's, impossible, like Patrick was saying, to disentangle our rezoning from what's been happening with the open space ordinance. And I think that in my opinion, what we're asking for with the rezoning will allow us to use the best use of the land and preserve the best use of the land. And right now, I did want to point out, just to get to specifics, it is possible to use an open space development in LR or in ag currently and in the future. Actually, it's mandated across the state that way. And in the current ordinance, it's actually allows you to preserve more land because the lots. And I hope that that will continue to be the case in the next draft of the that we'll see next month. And that potentially the removal of lot widths and lot sizes and drastic setback reduction. But the point being, the more we can cluster our land, the more. And if you look at the master plan, the zone where the future land use is LR, and that's what's happening. We're the only ag space left. And this is also what happens when we when you require large lot sizes. You see what happens around our property. The large lots, you don't build ag space. You can't actually stop development. I mean, I know that a lot of people would like to be able to, but we can't. It's a property right. But we can shape it, and when we do, we can cluster the homes and preserve land like we're asking for. So I think to me, it seems like a hard case to deny the rezoning based on the fact that it's all residential around us. It's cited for a low residential in the future, so, and I think this is the best case, honestly, is that like, then, even if we were to sell at those conditions that I believe transfer. So like, this is essentially preserving affluent into perpetuity. So yeah, I'm happy to also be, by Patrick says, to answer questions as well. And I do look forward to the open space development potentially being really incredible with the continued conversation in October. But as the letter that Patrick pointed sent out to you all, there are still issues that get less than. And if anyone wants to go on the after this, individual conversations, I would love to go into details. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Right. Absolutely. Anybody else from the public? Yes, Amanda in the back. Pacifica. That's you. We'll try not to. Awesome. Glad you did that. Any other members, public, that want to talk on this one? Yeah.
Dave Reinhardt, on Conway Road again. I just would like to support the conditional rezoning that's been requested. I think 12 homes on this site not affect traffic. I walk Conway Road every day. It just wouldn't be a concern. I think 12 homes would not be a burden on the school system. And from what has happened previously, I would prefer open space, as I said earlier. But Patrick, Christian, and anybody else involved has been more than open, bringing neighbors. And it's been very, very pleasing. So I would do that, and hope you seriously consider this in the open space.
Thank you. You get it?
Yeah, actually, we both started it.
Members of the public, but Patrick, we're talking, I'll offer you a minute to 1 minute or 2 to answer questions, okay? All right, I'll close the public hearing except for the applicant. I'm going to ask him to answer some questions at the end, but yeah, I don't know where to start on this one. I wish we had the open space done. So, I mean, this project fits exactly with the open space preservation ordinance.
I understand why we're going for the rezoning, and we will go through what we have to look at, because we're very limited on rezoning. We can only look at certain factors, and that's what we're gonna focus on tonight. But I will say that if it were me, Patrick, I would go through the public hearing, and you could do it right before the vote, which would be better than letting it go to the township board. But I would hold it, because what I hate to see you do is change this to low density residential and have anything negatively impact what we want to do. What I mean by that is, when you go from ag to low density residential, I know you can try some right to farm stuff, but it gets more expensive for you, and you'd have to fight for that. That's a, right to farm act is something to go to court on, and that's just, you know, so. Yeah, it's a challenge process, so. You know, just from what you're trying to do with the property, what you want it to look like, I really think it is ag, and it should be zoned ag, but I understand that what we're gonna focus tonight on is our standards of review, so that's what we're gonna do. But I just offer you that advice. I would say, I would hate for you to go through a process, get to the end, and you have a property now that's zoned low density residential, and it doesn't offer you what you need, because I also think the setback issues and some of those issues that haven't been solved too much. But again, that's all site plan, which we don't focus on tonight. So I do have to remind my members that this is simply the standards of review that we have, even though this is conditional, we did not submit a site plan, so this isn't based on the site plan. This is based on two conditions and everything we know about low density residential, because if Patrick disappears tomorrow into the ether, and the land transfers, all you have left is low density residential and these two conditions. So that's what I want you to focus on. For any decision making or any discussion of the hearing tonight. I know it's very hard, because what I'd really like to focus on is the wonderful site plan that you would potentially develop at some point, but we can't do that. So, we will go through those, but before we do, are there questions for Patrick? Like I have one, but I'm gonna hold it. Are there any other questions? Mike, do you have?
I got a list, buddy.
You have a list?
We'll go.
Okay, and I'll be your judge and jury, keep you on task.
I think the one is the farming and LVR, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask about that.
I just was going to ask, what is the advantage to you going from ag to low density residential if you're still going to wait for the open space preservation to be passed to come up with a site plan?
Yeah, to cluster those.
So what's the advantage of changing the zoning other than like Dave was saying, you might lose some benefits too?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that
So
question.
the two houses are what?
That is one thing. I'm glad you asked the question. I didn't really address that in my remarks initially. The two houses is one thing. That's something we can either live with either way, really. Because we were ready to get that up with the open space ordinance already. We still would. I think the open space ordinance ought to have the two houses, but as you can tell, we haven't been arguing that. Is that, and also just a general uncertainty about where the open space ordinance is going to end up. There's a lot of uncertainty about how it deals with road right of ways and setbacks. And every foot of that setback and road right of way combination counts. Now, the ironic thing is that the front yards for ag and LR are the same, they're 150 feet. But so we're looking at how can we squeeze those dimensions in other places because we can't get any relief on the front yard. If the current draft ordinance passes, right? Because the current draft ordinance doesn't reduce the setbacks, except as an exception process, if the planning commission grants it.
That's not how I read it.
If the planning commission may at its discretion or something like that.
Yeah, essentially what we're saying is design what you want and bring it to the planning commission. That's what OSPDO is. So there are, in my mind, if you enter a plan under OSPDO and you actually go through both design processes, the one would show, yes, the setbacks and the standard of what you have without it.
The next one, you could throw them out the window. Because we have the power to say that's okay. So, you know what I mean, like,
I didn't mean to go off on that.
No, I just-
Go.
I'm struggling with it.
From my perspective, there's immense uncertainty about how that process ends up at this point. I mean, if we have favorable people on the plan, say, yeah, we get this, we're gonna relax with that. Great. No.
Yeah, well, that would be any OSBO process that we would design it, because it's based on design.
I mean, you can't even implement Rebecca Harvey's illustration that's on page 2 of the document without following the exception process. That's how bad it is.
The way she had wrote it, and that's what Attorney Thal is looking at, is that do you write this thing as in, I'm gonna establish setback minimums and maximums? We didn't want that. Design it the way you want, and then everything's under exception. So I can't just say, in a legal document, an ordinance structure, I can only speak to state law, but I could never write it in a way that did what you wanted unless I actually put a standard in there. We don't want the standard. So to say, you know, the planning commission has to go through a design process with it, is essentially what they do. So, yeah, I mean, it's uncertain, but
I don't mean to argue that point so much, but even, I mean, if there was relief on the front yard of the road right away, going down the road, so to speak, no pun intended, that would be great. If there wasn't for whatever reason, or if there wasn't because the OSPDO is still being developed and they changed in some way that we don't forget, right? And at least we got the side yards and the rear yards to take up some of the slack because those bigger.
but you can fit 12 in an LDR with those setbacks on 10 acres with a road.
And like, just like the thoughts about the acceptance.
I'm trying to envision this. But it's really, I'm just asking.
You have to be creative.
Okay, all right.
I see how you're thinking.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm trying to, go ahead, Steve, I butted in.
No,
But that's a big part of it. We're just trying to put ourselves in the best position we could. And frankly, the reason why I submitted this on July 26th or whatever that was, the day before your last time this meeting, is because the master plan was going to be real.
Yeah.
And I was afraid that was going to be unready.
All right, no, I was,
That's why, that was the time.
yeah, I did. Steve, go ahead.
I'm good.
You're good.
I got one, so like this, the other issue I had is that you've already got 2 buildings on this property, then you got the barn. Now you're asking us to come in and rezone it again.
I have one structure that is half line in the house.
They have barn, they have house, but in fact, you've already got facilities on this property, the structures that were built in the MGA district. Now we're gonna figure out how does this fit in the LR, right?
Well, that gets to my question. So how do we fit? The assumption on LR is that you would actually have all 20 acres buildable. But you don't. You have an existing structure and you've got to have at least something else on property that can't be built on, right? Is there any wetland or is there any non-buildable property? Okay.
There's no way.
All right, but the existing structure, an existing well, right? And you have to have, you know, that can't be buildable property, right? Or is the existing structure going away? No,
Definitely not.
I'm trying to figure out how we get to the numbers here. Yeah,
There's nothing.
Also looks like it's not, so.
we'll go through our standards before we do that.
Yeah.
I'm just having a conversation. I'm trying to figure this out.
The existing structure is intended to be one of the 12.
Okay, that was my question.
Now, exactly how that works mechanically, I can't tell you, but I believe, I'm quite sure
Okay.
that this happens.
All right. I'll go with you on that. Yes, we will get into the zoning application, all the other standards here in a minute. Any questions logistically that'll help us discuss those standards?
I guess
Some would, like, you can, there are things in between.
Okay, we can ask as we go. I just wanted to create a little overview to this. So my last question before we get into those is, animals, farm animals, anything like that. I mean, that's where you'd have to go and fight for your right to farm, right? You can't do that on LDR.
As long as we meet the games, essentially, then we can do anything. Including, but basically what it does is it keeps us to reasonable grid sizes that don't have noise and nuisance and smell. And are set back a certain amount.
There's a lot of regulations on that.
It is, but we were gonna do those anyway. The genetic, like the GAMS are, we would go further than honestly with our genetic farming practices.
I wonder how that process would be kicked off. I mean, we have had sheep on the property, and most of it since I've always.
Be kicked off by a neighbor that didn't love you as much as these neighbors.
So, somebody thinks that, right.
That's all, it always happens.
There are people that.
They call Carol.
And the sheep have been a sore point for at least one person several years ago. So I see the scenario that you're talking about. Well, how that would play out is a person would say, we don't like the sheep, and can the please township sue Patrick for the sheep. And I think that would cause a big headache for them. Hey, but you're right. It's a down.
Right.
We don't want to go in that direction, right? I'm thinking that there could be a challenge to having livestock.
Right.
So I would rather keep it in that if we can achieve our other objectives better.
All right, so my only other two comments is a questions comment. So no matter how we move forward this evening, any motion to approve, we would have to deal with two issues on the application. So I need you to redo your drawing and show the existing structures for the official record. And I would need you to what was it, the abutting or the adjoining property uses, those just have to be labeled on that same drawing, right, Carol?
Yeah,
Keep it
they should
consistent.
show, it does, it would be nice if it was to scale.
Or yeah, it's to scale as much as possible.
Yeah.
That would be, if we're to do something, however this body goes, that would be so in your back pocket, you know Because those are-
Let me clarify and make sure.
that. Yeah, those would be legal requirements.
The scale, site, showing the business structure and all of the adjacent properties and the zoning districts of those, which are all.
Right, they're all ag,
Right?
but I asked everyone to do this, so I have to ask everyone.
No, I want to. Not including every property within 40 feet, but just the immediate within.
It's the adjacent ones, right? Yeah.
And the accessory structure, it's like from living to, so the house and then the accessory structure. Yeah, there's two.
That's fine.
Another
I'm not gonna worry about that right now.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna get to our standards of review. Because this is the meat and potato for those of you who were here last month, you probably know these as well. The PCD, the planning commission is gonna go through these and we're gonna discuss each one. I do want to point out before we begin discussing, I want to make sure everyone on the planning commission understands the two conditions that would go with this property in perpetuity. If we were to change it to low density residential, these two conditions would be set on these 20 acres. You could not change this. The total number of residential lots units will not exceed 12. That's one condition. Which under LBR, as we know, would be, 20. So he's going down from 20 to 12, assuming all 20 are buildable, which I don't know.
It goes ag.
Yeah, but anyway, under LDR, there'd be actually more than 12, assuming. So he's saying I'll limit this to 12. Under ag, he'd be limited to 10, assuming 100% buildable. At least 50% of the parcel, parent parcel, will be dedicated as permanently preserved contiguous open space by means of recorded deed. What does parent parcel mean? Isn't it all one parcel?
Yeah, it would be considered a parent parcel.
Oh, because you're gonna split these up.
I I took that language directly out of the open space.
Yep, now I recognize where it came from, okay. By means of recorded deed restrictions, so those two would go with the property. So now if we go through our standard review, we have to consider all uses in the proposed zoning district, which is what we've been doing here tonight. Although I will point out in the staff report that there are special uses in LDR, they don't vary huge from ag. I do want to point out, like, last time we were considering multifamily residential, which is a much bigger zoning change. Low density residential is essentially what most township is. That isn't being farmed, because even if you have 10 acres, you're pretty much low density residential, if you have a yard, it's 8 acres wide, right? So, if you look at the uses in our ordinances in this township, you won't find too huge of a separation because of that runover between those two things. The only thing I think that was different is home occupations are allowed in LDR. I don't think they're in ag, are they? Right?
I'm sorry.
Home occupations, special uses, some of those aren't
Yeah.
allowed.
Like home occupations, yeah, they're pretty universal,
They're very
to be
universal,
allowed,
okay.
but they're just special
I
uses.
was trying to find some that
Yeah.
that weren't, but it's pretty much. And the setbacks also.
Somebody define what a home occupation is.
I mean, we get them a lot. Every once in a while, someone will come in. The last one we had was, someone wanted to repair diesel trucks in their shop in the back, or someone wants to cut hair in their basement, or someone wants to, it's different than it used to be, because today everyone has a home occupation on the internet.
That's what I feel like, yeah.
But I'm telling you, this was old language written in time, and that's what you did. So I'm telling you, that's what we get. Setbacks, we know some of the differences there. We just talked about it. So we have to consider this not just for Patrick's use, but any use in the future. And that's, I mean, I don't see a lot going from ag to LDR on this particular statement. Any questions, Mike, under this? No, okay, this doesn't go. Compliance with the master plan. The staff report pointed this out. The master plan does this, has this labeled as land use LDR, which includes ag, low density residential. So some people get confused. Land use designation, low density residential in the master plan is different than a zoning designation. The zoning designations are under that, and in our master plan, low density residential includes ag, low density residential zoning, so it's confusing, but the way to think about that is that's essentially the rural parts of the township. So I think you'd have a hard time saying these two uses still fit the current use and the proposed in the zoning, the master plan, but you could look at other parts of the master plan and argue, but anyone have any other thoughts on the master plan that relates to this request? Consistency with zoning in the general area. Now, this is an area that came up in a couple questions, and I think in the staff, or maybe, I don't know where. Residential zoning and properties along the research. So this is where the courts have looked at, is the zoning consistent in the general area? And general area can have many different meanings depending on the traffic flow and where folks are at. The next standard is very close to that. Is this consistent and compatible with land use patterns in the area? So as I mentioned, land use in the area, certainly low density residential fits. The 1 acre lots aren't so much what we have, but I think that had more to do with what we allowed in the past, which was essentially take your ag property and split it up into 10 acre bowling alleys, and that's what you get, right? So any thoughts, comments on these two standards? General land use in the area. You brought up spot zoning one.
Yeah, then if you look at the 2 acres, bigger lots in the area right now, it's about 20 houses. Small area.
Yeah.
In fairness to the surrounding property.
Well, you'd be dropping 12. Or you'd be dropping 10. Kept it the way it is.
I'm having a problem with this 12.
12 over 10 is killing you?
It's killing me, buddy.
All right, that's an adequate thing because it's in the condition, so we can talk about it. I think that would be under any of these.
Is it killing you from a, what perspective? I'm just trying to.
And what are we gonna do next guy coming in? That's one of my big things. And we have no. Waiting up on these.
So next door, someone wants to take their 20 and make 20 homes,
For the 40 acres that,
then 40 wants to make 40 homes.
Exactly.
and then how do they do about the ag and that has less stuff that's behind them for cheese manufacturing facility that has to use. Or other things along those lines. I farm, I have 40 acres and so I am really cautious about this also ag property. It's unfortunate we don't have this open space thing done, because I love the idea. I just really want us to be aware of what we set ourselves up for. There's already that development that's one section over, and if we give you guys the some residential, I'm concerned for that 40 acres that runs behind.
Then we have.
You're on something.
We'll get to that.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. I won't say,
That's gonna be illegal people.
I won't say no more.
There's more moving.
There's a 40 that's, it's off of,
There's a 40-acre parcel off of
Sibley, right?
Okay, let's get that one.
That says we're back at home and it's the new one.
That's
On the road, the long drive,
All right. The suitability of proposed uses in the zoning district, we talked about that. The trend of building population development, it's actually what we were just talking about. So the problem area being the consent judgment, Westchester Farms does throw a wrench, but you have to look at it and say, okay, so you have that, it's there, you didn't do anything about it. So now what do we do around it? And then further on, we'll get into infrastructure, actually, the next one. So I think we can get to the next one, which is infrastructure, because the two go hand in hand. If you look at our master plan, someone pointed it out earlier, you know, where do you limit development, where do you do development? There's no infrastructure here, so we'd be setting an LDR change where there's no infrastructure. Yeah, is that something? Any? Yeah, I'm in trouble for that one, I guess, too. So I was told you can't do it there, so. we can do it here. Is apparently, we only want development where there's sewer. So if you only want that. So, yeah, I mean, it's analogous to the Finney property, which, they wanted to cluster 8 homes on 100 acres, but it wasn't conditional, so we had to judge it based on 1,000 homes apparently. Is what it's gonna be. The suitability in services. So public services means transportation, road, sewer, public safety, fire, police, but in this case, sewer, water. There is nothing running down that road, correct? Mike, you had questions related to this thing?
No, that's
Okay.
I was trying to help the way, the private road.
Well, under OSPDO, it's much easier for them,
Right, but right now. we
but
don't.
right now, they'd have to, yeah, figure that out. How would you do that? How do you do 12 homes? We allow 3 on a driveway.
there are several things that may have to happen. Something has to happen first.
I just,
There was a township-wide private ordinance.
right, road ordinance.
As you pointed out, the private road seems to be a major component of the OSP.
Yes.
So that seems likely.
Okay, that's just answering, I was just asking.
If nothing happens in private road, then you get into another issue, when the counties taking back of approving almost all of the public roads.
Right.
And the issue is then, if it's defensible, to
Right.
ban roads completely. I don't want to go to.
No, I understand that issue, yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty there, and, the bottom would be quite a bit, and
I just wondered if you had a creative plan.
Yeah, I don't know. Have to,
Okay,
but, there is, but, I'm really happy that it's actually been consideration in this, you know.
Okay.
Right, but we're considering tonight doesn't plan it.
it's a tough blocker because that doesn't exist right now for an LD. Sewer water. Okay, traffic. Patrick brought up the lack of huge traffic right now on that road. Consider yourself lucky, if it's the only road left where we don't have.
I think you have 4 o'clock and.
At 4 o'clock, probably different. Yeah.
It doesn't stop.
Every road.
You can't really get out of the road.
Yeah.
They are fine. This is not even- I don't know this stuff.
Where are they coming from?
Show me back to this.
Where they going?
Stop and they go back down.
Well, yeah, I think there's a childcare over there.
Yeah, they go down to the push road, they go around and-
Go to Ivy and do this bypass, a lot of stuff too.
Yeah, we do that.
Don't know.
Right.
I've seen that as well, certain times today.
Yeah, it's happening.
Well, I know. Yeah, I was telling my wife that she didn't believe me. Growing up on Bean Road, and we used to walk to the water store every day. That's when you're 10, you're by yourself. So, walk to the water store, come back. I never saw a car. I told her I never saw a car. Yeah, a little bit.
When they didn't care about you.
Well, it's obvious that they care. But the traffic issue is, it's so, it's not even one that I usually hold up in this discussion because in our township, there's so many limitation factors. So I actually don't see that as a negative. Your reasonable use under current zoning classification. So that's where it actually works against you because it's good farmable land. So you can keep it farming. Well, wait a minute, you do want to keep it farming. So that is, but your condition is actually written to preserve it as open space, not just farming, so. Could be a meadow.
What type of conservation route should you go through to make that?
Probably a permanent
Deed restriction. I think you'd have to.
Oh, I'm not familiar.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Right. Identifiable public need, you have a need for more LDR. That's not actually, this standard is more applicable when you're talking about low-income housing and different income housing standards, which I do know in part of your original plan, smaller homes, more affordable homes, but that unfortunately is not part of this conditional change. We're not gonna talk about that tonight. It's not a negative, not a positive for you. Does it diminish value around you? That's of course always where you have, the argument of whether or not, I think the only time a rezoning can really impact that is when you go from ag to, that was part of our discussion last time, also family residential versus low density residential. I think it's a little harder to talk about. What it does set up for you though is the fear that I think you brought up for me, which is that when you set that precedence, what happens around it, and then that does change value strictly. And then citizen opposition or support. We've heard a little bit, not comparably to what we've had before. So really, I think this comes down to our standards around consistency, compatibility, and what the proposed conditions are. I don't see the conditions in my mind as being anything horrible, although as Tom points out, it does allow you to go from 10 to 12, but for me, that's not as much heartburn. For me, is this the right zoning for the proposed use? I would rather be ag open space. So I don't really know. Those are our standards. Thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, or ideas for action this evening?
Can this be withdrawn?
It could be tabled until. Yeah.
I understand why he would want to, but I also understand why you might want to. So I just, you know, if it's not what you ultimately want to build what you need here, then, you know, I'd love to be able to say, I guarantee what we would do when you come back, but I don't know. It's all based on what these members want to do. The public hearing would be closed and finished, so any action we take would just be one way or the other. We could even structure the motion and then table the motion, so we just came back to the motion. So we can do it that way, or we can make a decision tonight, send it to the township board. They could hold it at their level, or they could act on it at their level as they're waiting for the OSPDO. It's a timing thing, so it's up to you.
So if you're laying out options.
That's what I'm laying out, yeah.
You're saying, I could just press forward and know the process, you can make a motion.
Yep.
Table it. Or I could withdraw.
Yes.
I mean, all these three things are.
They're all possible. I think the first two are really your option, if I'm reading your line, you would want to withdraw it before, because then you have to go through all this all over again.
Now, if I were to, yeah. The
So
only
I would
reason why-
recommend-
I mean, I had an unconditional rezone table about a year ago.
You withdrew that one.
I went through that one because it was noted that the conditional rezoning would have been better.
Yeah.
And the open space process was not when we started. I thought, okay. I'm not gonna withdraw this one tonight. If there was, I'll say this. If the open space ordinance goes the way it has been with maybe some other assurances in there, some of the things I'm concerned about. Maybe not 100%, but some of this stuff.
I can only work on process. I
No, I'm not saying, I'm not asking you to be late, but if such a thing was sent out to the county board, that would be adequate for our usage. And probably at that time, I would outright withdraw this, because I'm sure the open space ordinance, anything that you approve, probably the township board would go along. So I'd like to withdraw this before the township board gets that, so that they can see that I'm not trying to kind of like dump the shark with the boat.
Well, and I don't know how it goes tonight, so that's the other thing. So if I were you, I would, ask the chair to, table this to the next meeting, which actually is October. Because the public hearing is done, so we don't have to notice a public hearing, it can always sit on the agenda. And if you're not happy with our work on the OSPDO, say Attorney Thal has a family member sick, and October 6th, I mean, we still have a meeting posted, so there'll be a meeting. You come back and say, well, I want you to vote because you're not doing the work on OSPDO, and you vote. That'd be what I would do, but I'm not saying what you should do. Carol, what other comment?
Actually, Patrick withdrew his request last year, but then asked to table it. So it's actually still there until it's 1 year next
It'll
month.
be tabled for you.
Yeah,
Actually, I do need to withdraw that one.
right. You
You
need to withdraw
I
that
have
one.
my deposit back too.
Right, because
Yeah,
that
you do need to
actually,
withdraw
that
that.
did get formally tabled, you withdrew
That's
for
right.
further action and asked to table it.
Yeah.
So when this one came in, I was like, oh, boy, here we go.
I was advised that the conditional rezone had to be a brand new application.
It does have,
It does.
Yeah.
Which means that the next step would be to withdraw the other one. But there's no reason to have both of them back.
right,
Yeah, we won't worry about the other one tonight. We can do that.
But I think the idea of tabling this one
Right.
until at least October 6th, maybe with the option of tabling it again.
Well, I can table it as many times as I want. I don't want to do it too many times, and I won't do it too many times, but I'll do it once or twice, just to give you full faith and effort that we can get this OSPDO done. Because I heard from you, I heard from your neighbors, I heard from Christian, I think everyone, and I heard from others that we would like to see this property done on the OSPDO. So that's why I'm suggesting it. Otherwise, I can let the vote fly where it's gonna go, which I have no idea.
It would probably be better for everyone to table this until we have some more certainty on it.
So as chair, I will submit to you that it will be on the agenda for October, both meetings in October. And then if you're not happy and you want to make the request to me to hold a vote, I will hold a vote. So we have a forum, I'll hold a vote. Okay?
And if you October, if you don't have a forum on October 6th, then just go to the next one.
Yes.
October 6th is work.
It's still a posted meeting, I guess we could vote on something if we want. As long as you have a forum and you have a posted meeting, you can vote, not a public hearing.
Are you thinking to vote on on the zoning? I guess I need to know where we're going with the agenda for that, so.
I would like this table to October 6th, and more than likely what's gonna happen is we're gonna table it then to October 20th.
Okay, so you want this? on this-
Unfinished business, leave it
Okay.
under unfinished
Okay.
business for October
So it'll
6th,
be more than, it'll be a special meeting, not just a work session.
however we want to
Okay.
do it.
Okay,
I don't wanna hold up this applicant anymore, and for getting a vote, but I also don't wanna do something that we don't need to do.
okay.
Everybody happy with that?
Yes, that would be my request, if I have to.
Your request is taken. You don't have to, I can just do it.
I thought you said you didn't have a request for me or something.
I don't like to just do things, I like to do it in cooperative.
I'm good with it.
Okay. The chair would like to table so the public hearing is closed, our discussion is closed, we're ready to run a motion, but before we do, I would like to table that until the October 6th meeting. As we try to resolve this issue under open space development. That's my motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you, Sandy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. And issue is tabled. See you in October. Several times. Twice.
I go to every meeting anyway.
Right?
That's right. Anyway.
Oh, that's right over there, that's my star. He's been at every meeting for like 2 years on Zoom. And you're not even asleep yet. Where do you drink? Maybe a drink. There we go. All right, any other communications for the Township Planning Commission?
No.
None? Any other comments, concerns, of Planning Commission members? None. All right, except for Mike, you will not be here on the 6th, and you likely won't be here at the end of the month. About time you started working. Basically walk around that lake every day. You know what you do?
No.
This is good. All right, with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn. 8:26, something like that. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, motion is done. We are adjourned. That was seconded by Mike. All right.